before I get into that, I'm going to tell you how it all began. So as you know, I was born and raised in Kuwait. I moved to New York when I was 18 years old, and I studied at the New School. I studied in Parsons fashion design, and I did a double major with fashion design and media and culture studies in Eugene. With fashion design, it was the perfect combination of both of my passions, which was, with both majors, it was a perfect combination because it was creativity and the humanitarian. In Parsons, I really got to reach my creative potential, and can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, and in Lang, I did a few study abroad programs. One of them where I went to Dharamsala in India, and I lived with a Tibetan refugee family, and I studied Tibetan politics. I also went to Cambodia, where I worked in an orphanage and studied Cambodian politics. And these experiences radically changed the way I viewed the world and my engagement with it. So all of a sudden, I started to question, what work do I really want to do? Do I really want to do fashion for fashion's sake? Or is there something else I would like to do? As I told you, in New York, it was the perfect combination of both of my passions. But now, as a Lebanese, I decided I want to go back to Lebanon and give back to my country where I'm supposedly from, but never really lived in. So I decided to move to Lebanon, and I started working for an NGO. I was volunteering and teaching preschool in a Palestinian NGO. And at the same time, I was working for Bookja, which is a furniture company. So it was also a good sort of combination of the two things I love. But somehow I still was looking for a way to merge it. So then I went back to New York to visit, and I was sitting with my professor from Parsons and mentor, Caroline Simonelli. And we were talking, and I was asking her, like, how do I merge both of my passions, creativity and social justice? And she looked at me, and out of nowhere, she said, it just came out of nowhere, she wasn't even thinking. She said, why don't you start a free school? And I said, yes, exactly. That's exactly what I want to do, as if it's so easy to start a school. And so why a free school for fashion design? Design is a process used to shape and structure our world. In the clothes that we wear, in the buildings that we live in the products that we use. In order for design to be used as an effective tool for the progress of society, it needs to be inclusive, incorporating the visions and voices of people from all backgrounds. Today, because of high tuition costs, the majority of the world is left out of the process of designing their communities. And in a country such as Lebanon, where there are already social and economic gaps, perhaps learning to design together will bring the people closer. So free design education is the solution to putting design in the hands of people from all backgrounds. So as I said yes, I looked at her and I said, will you come with me? And keep in mind, Caroline is 77 years old. She has 50 years of experience in fashion design, and she's originally Lebanese, but her parents left during World War I, so she's never been there before. So out of nowhere, she just looked at me and she said, of course, I'll come with you. So now I have the teacher and the professor of 50 years of experience. And at the same time, we were talking to a friend of mine who works for Donna Karan in New York, and she looked at me and she said, if you start this school, I will donate Donna Karan fabrics, which is almost worth $100,000. So here I had the teacher, I had the fabric, and now I had to start the school. The only problem was I had no idea how to start a school. How does one start a school? So I flew back to Beirut, and I started to work on the pilot project proposal. Already upon the idea being conceived, people were coming on board. I was talking to my friends about it. They were giving me their advice. We were going back and forth of writing this proposal. So already we were brainstorming. And by the time the pilot project was done, I decided to take it to an NGO to see if I can collaborate with them. I went to this NGO and they looked at the proposal and they said, yes, we'll do it. At first I was ecstatic. I was so happy to be collaborating with someone. But very soon I realized that the NGO world doesn't really have the same objectives as what we had for Creative Space. I mean, for them, it's about quantity versus quality. So for example, and it has to be project-based. So for example, if I'm teaching a 2-week course where I'm teaching 300 women how to sew, then they would fund it. But unfortunately, I mean, it's good, but that's not at all what we were trying to do. So I decided to leave the idea of working and collaborating with an NGO and to do it the way that I had envisioned it originally. So luckily, because I have very supportive family, I took this proposal to my parents and they said that if I can make this pilot project happen, I have 3 months to make it happen. If I can do it, then they'll fund the pilot project. So now I had the funds. Now I needed a space, and I needed 5 students. I wanted to keep it intimate. So I found this little cute and cozy little cave, which I thought at the time was really inspirational. So, and I knew the people that were working there, so they gave me this space. The hardest part was finding the students. For us, I literally didn't know where to go. I didn't know anybody. I barely knew anybody in Lebanon, so I just started by knocking on people's doors. I went to NGOs. I went to Palestinian refugee camps. I went to women's centers. I went to orphanages. I told them that the problem was I was a 25-year-old girl with no credibility. I just graduated from university. I have no idea how to start a school. Why would they trust their students? Why would they trust their children's lives? I mean, why would they put their children's lives in my hands? So I had to convince them about my idea. And slowly, people were starting to be convinced, but the problem was most of these parents didn't want their children to leave their communities. And I insisted on starting in Beirut. Eventually, I found 5 dedicated students who came every day from Monday to Friday. They were Armenian, Palestinian, Lebanese from different backgrounds, and they were super, super dedicated. So the journey began. Caroline came all the way from New York for 3 months, and we began the pilot project. Like I said, the students came every single day. They collaborated, they worked together. It was amazing, it was exciting, they were passionate, they were dedicated, it was rough. But at the end of the day, upon starting this idea, we didn't know how they were supposed to create 30 dresses, because we had to sell the dresses, right? So we had to create 30 dresses in 3 months, but these students didn't have the technical skills, so we had to teach them. And the problem was we didn't know how. The fabrics were in front of us. So we decided to give these fabrics to the students and say, go. And what we saw was unbelievable, really unbelievable. These students had no skills, but they were taking these fabrics, they were draping, they were sculpting, they were creating as if they already were designers. And me and Caroline were convinced at that moment that we had something in our hands and that this was going to be our mission. And also, this was kind of like the start of what we call a progressive model, although it was a very old way of doing things. Back in the day, when designers wanted to design, they would go work under mentorship. And in this, it was sort of like a holistic experience where you would drape, you would draw, you would sketch, and you would learn. But what universities have done is that they have compartmentalized these skills, these technical skills, into courses. So all of a sudden, there's the drawing class, there's the sewing class, there's the concepts class, and they're divided into these boxes, which kind of separates these things in your head. So what we decided to do is kind of have this sort of interdisciplinary approach and start by embedding these technical skills into the creative process. And the idea is, at the end of the day, is at the Creative Space, we make designers, not clothes. And you can only be a designer when you're embedding these technical skills into your actual creative process. So, after 3 months, the students designed 30 dresses by hand. It was unbelievable. And around 300 people came to this exhibition, and we sold every single piece. It was very exciting. And basically, this proved in our pilot project that we had something in our hands and that we had to continue this. So, what next? I was a 25-year-old girl. There was this project in front of me, which I had proved somehow that works, but then Caroline went back to New York, and I was left with this idea. In the last 3 years, it's been trial and error. Mostly error, but a lot of good parts as well. It was about the learning experience, and today, we have become a 3-year program. The students come every day. Like I said, from Monday to Friday. We have an exhibition at the end of every year. It was actually last month we had our first exhibition in Kuwait, which was also very exciting. It was the first time we go outside of Lebanon. So this is how we generate income. And we also have generous donors who help sponsor the students' education. We've had 4 exhibitions so far, and the exhibitions are slowly turning into a brand. So the idea is that the Creative Space brand will support the education of the Creative Space student. To me, as a personal experience, what I find very beautiful is coming in every day and watching these students work together, collaborate, share their skills, and grow as designers. When you give them a project, they take it and they take it much further. They are designers at heart. They become like family. I'll give you an example, actually, of a really good example of how they've become like family. So one of our students, she's Palestinian. She left because she got married and she had a baby. And so we went to go visit her with the students at Burj Barajne. It's a Palestinian camp in Lebanon. And so we were there and we were having a lot of fun. We saw the baby, she was really cute. And then we decided, then when we left, one of my students, who's Lebanese, it was his first time actually entering a Palestinian refugee camp, he looked at me and he said, I don't understand. I mean, we're the same, we're friends, we have the same passions, we're with each other every day. Why don't we have the same rights? He didn't understand, he couldn't process it. It was the first time he had entered this camp, and to him, they were best friends. He didn't see what the difference was. And so all of a sudden, it became real. And to him, this was sort of like a shift of the way his questions were heading. And to me, this is when I realized, well, I realized before, but this is really when I realized that this is why I'm doing this. It's for moments like these. And thanks. So what's happening over the last 3 years are not only are students starting to approach us. So before, I had to go knock on their doors. Now people are starting to approach us. They're starting to reach out to us and they're starting to apply. And we go through a very rigorous process of application because the Creative Space Beirut student is a very specific type of student. They're dedicated, they're talented, they come every day from Monday to Friday. So this has to be something they really want. On top of that, the team is getting larger. We have people coming on board from all different aspects of design who want to teach courses, who want to collaborate in photography, in film, the spaces that we get to have exhibitions are all donated and they're sponsored. So there's a lot of in-kind sponsorship happening, and we've become a community. And it's really, really proven that working as an individual is really, really outdated because we are so much stronger as a team. There's no question about it. Over here, there are some examples of some of the student designs. The space it's called Station in Beirut, and they let us use the space for free as well. And the photographer came on board, and the models, everything is sort of volunteer basis, but everybody's so happy to do it. These are 100% the students' designs. They work from inspiration. They have a sketchbook. They go from concepts to making the dress. So these are some examples. I also have a 3-minute video that's just an example of a collaboration that we did with a friend of mine, Nicholas Alhani, and he did this video. It was very, very last minute, but we jumped on board. We got the pre-production, and it was. It turned out really cool, so here. Yeah? It's a fashion film, just letting you know.
I know it hurts. You know I'd quench that thirst. I can just say you're lonely. I say you think about it, 'cause you're the only one who resonates. That chase mouth open like higher than the top of my dreaming of you.
These are the mood boards of the students' work. So everything what you see in the background is actually the mood boards of the students. So this is just an example of what you saw over there is completely 100% all of the students' work. They really, as I said before, they work throughout the whole year from concept, from inspiration. They really dive into sculpture, to draping, it's a whole year process. And at the end, they have this sort of outcome. So yeah, collaboration is awesome.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions?
I just wanted to ask you, how do students qualify for this? Do you look at certain situations they're in order for them to get into the school, or it's just open for everybody?
Okay, it's a good question. Well, actually, because it's a free school, in fact, it's a free school at this point. Eventually, in the future, we hope to be open to everybody. But right now, we have a very strict sort of rule in terms of who can enter, because if you can afford to pursue a fashion design education, then we don't accept students that can afford it. So it's for people who can't afford it, essentially. But there are different circumstances. How do I figure that out? Okay, so we have interviews. Either we have an outreach sort of, so we're in touch with different NGOs and different refugee camps, and essentially everybody really knows each other. So either they reach out to us or we reach out to them, and then they come for interviews. So usually they come with a portfolio, and these students, they're pretty young, from 16 to 25, and a lot of them already have a portfolio where they've been sketching since they were kids. So they show us their work even though they have no training. That's the unbelievable part. So you have all this talent, raw talent right in front of you. And depending on the circumstance, it's also face-to-face interviews. So depending on how I feel about the student, and it's like an energy exchange almost. You know when someone really, really, really wants something, and you know when they're just doing it because they have nothing else to do. You know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Sarah Hermez.